Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Self-Discovery Radio Show. From mindfulness to makeovers, fitness to friendship, nutrition to naturopathic medicine, we cover all the topics that help empower you to live a more enriched and fulfilling life. Hosted by self-discovery guru and founder of Align Signs, Jessica Baker, each engaging episode includes a celebrated lifestyle expert who will inform and motivate you to look within and live a better life. We are thrilled you tuned in, and we're excited to share our dose of today's self-discovery wisdom.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Self-Discovery Show, where today we're talking about the silent killer, stress, which many of you probably know can lead to heart disease, high blood pressure, chest pain, and irregular heartbeat, not to mention hair loss, acne, cause abdominal fat to accumulate, cause decreases in the body's immune system's response to infection, and is also thought to be the cause of 30% of all infertility problems. So, in hopes to have a stress-free summer, we have invited Dr.Doni Wilson to the show, who is a nationally celebrated naturopathic doctor and nutrition specialist, who has also been the president and executive director of the New York Association of Naturopathic Doctors for the past 10 years. Some of you might know her from her popular book, The Stress Remedy, which discusses stress, its impact, and offers in-depth guidance on how to reduce it and reclaim optimal health. Hello, Dr. Doni. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Jessica. It's my pleasure to be here.
So to dive right in, I noticed in a recent article published on Mind Body Green about reducing stress in the summer months, you talk a little bit about nutrition. So if you don't mind, please tell us what you think is the number one dietary mistake people make that leads to stress.
Oh, the number one. Wow, I think I may have a couple, but one of the top dietary mistakes is sugar and carbohydrates. They're so tempting, and when we get in the summer mood, they're right in front of us, these snacks and beverages that have higher sugar and carbohydrate content. So I would say that's one of the most common things that create stress for us that we don't even realize it's doing.
So what do you think are some alternative, like, breakfast items or lunch items to, like, every morning I wake up and I go to Starbucks. I love my Starbucks, and I get tea with sugar and a croissant, which is the inside. But if you had, like, a suggestion, what would you think is a great alternative for some of the summer stuff that we consume?
I love to go to Starbucks as well, and what I would say is when you go, maybe try one of the teas, like you can either do iced or hot green tea or one of the other teas, so you feel like you've got something, that's got maybe even a little caffeine in it, but it's a little better for you without so much sugar and dairy products in the drink. And then the other things you can choose, most Starbucks will have options that are containing nuts and dried fruits. So often when I go in, that's what I'm looking for. I'm going for something that has nuts and dried fruits to give me protein and healthy fats and healthier carbohydrates, and it gives me energy. But I'm not going to end up, on a short-lived sugar spike. See, that's the thing is when you have something that has higher sugar content, whether it's, it hides in the syrups, right? So if you get anything with flavor, it's probably going to have sugar in it. And I get hesitant about the sugar-free options. I have to say they do have. You'll see out there a lot of places offer sugar-free, but you want to find out what the sugar-free means. If it's a chemical sweetener, that's not so good for you either. So the better option is to choose not something that says sugar-free. You want something that just didn't have any sweetener in it to begin with that just tastes good, like maybe a berry tea or a green tea, and then choose something to eat that gives you good energy but not that sugar spike. Because we all kind of know, right, when you eat something sugary and you might feel good for an hour, but then you're much more likely to end up with your sugar levels dropping, and then you're feeling low energy and maybe irritable or nauseous, and then you feel like you have to go find another high carbohydrate thing to eat or drink in order to keep you going through the day. I call it a sugar roller coaster. So if you can keep yourself off of that sugar roller coaster starting from the beginning of the day, then you're going to feel much better.
That's a good point. Yeah. So, the theme of stress and smart nutrition choices, I noticed that you're known as the gluten-free doctor. We're hearing a lot about it. So, seeing gluten-free products on the shelf, what exactly is gluten, and how does it relate to stress?
Gluten, the simplest way I find to think about it is it's the protein in wheat products. So if you think of it from the plant, the wheat plant, so it's not just whole wheat, it's even anything made from wheat flour. It's also in a couple other plants, barley, rye, like R-Y-E, and spelt, S-P-E-L-T. All of those grains, the protein in them is called gluten. And it gets even more detailed than that, but for starters, that's a good place to understand, is just to know that anything that is made with those flours from those plants is going to have that protein called gluten in it. And the thing with gluten, and also now the research is telling us that it's even more than gluten. It can actually be the entire wheat altogether. One of the main problems it causes is in the digestive tract, and that's because no humans are able to digest it. It doesn't matter which human we're talking about. Humans just don't digest wheat and gluten well, and so already if we consume a lot of it, we're at risk of having it cause trouble. Now it doesn't mean if for some people who maybe are not having as many symptoms from gluten, they can have a little bit and feel fine and it's not a problem. I think it's when it comes into our diet in so many places.
I mean, like, what are the symptoms that a person would notice on themselves after having gluten that could be potentially, symptoms of an underlying problem that they should stop eating gluten?
It's a great question, and this is the other thing about gluten is it can be very sneaky. You may not have symptoms right away. I mean, some people, if they have gluten, they may pretty soon after have a rash or a headache, for example. But for most people, you don't notice it because the reaction is subtle and it happens over days to weeks after you eat the gluten. So it's hard to pinpoint it based on the symptom. I would just say that if you're not feeling your best in any way, like if you are more tired than you think you should be, if you have some even minor digestive issues, even if it's just a little bloating, or certainly if you have more major digestive issues, but it doesn't only affect the digestion. Gluten also can affect the nervous system. So a person who may be getting headaches or even anxiety, then they should be thinking, hey, maybe this has to do with gluten. And now, it's important to differentiate. Some people do have something called celiac disease. The research estimates that it's about 1 out of 130 people have celiac disease. And celiac disease is specifically when the immune system gets triggered into autoimmunity because of gluten. But that doesn't happen to everyone, and we do know now that it's possible to react to gluten without it becoming celiac disease. So there's something called gluten sensitivity and even wheat intolerance that can happen much more frequently, maybe 1 in every 4 people, or maybe even more than that. So it's something to consider, but the thing is that it's relatively new in the medical community to be recognizing it, and so there's not a very specific test for it. Right now, one of the best recommendations is to try avoiding gluten and wheat and see if you feel better. And the avoidance time even varies. Some people suggest at least 3 weeks to be able to tell if you feel better. Some people suggest even up to 6 months of avoiding it in order to see if you feel better, and then expose yourself to gluten and see if you feel worse. What I find in my practice, Jessica, is that there is a test called an IgG food test where we're looking at antibodies to gluten in the bloodstream, and if we see IgG antibodies to gluten, then that can give us a really pretty good idea that this person is probably reacting to gluten. So it helps the person decide whether it's worth it to try avoiding gluten and see how they feel. But the symptoms can vary widely in terms of going back to your original question. So I would usually say if you don't feel well, or if you're wondering, feel free to reach out to me because I can help you to determine if it's something to consider.
Well, that's great information. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's clarified a lot of my diet, actually. So figure that out myself. What stress factors are unique to summer that may not be present during other times of the year, and what advice do you have on tackling them?
One is that people tend to do a little bit more traveling during the summer. Of course, we can travel all year round, but summertime there can be, camping and traveling that might not be happening other times of the year, especially with kids when they're off of school. And so that's one thing to consider. A lot of times people don't necessarily think of that as stressful. And so just inherently defining or redefining stress to say that stress is really any time that the body has to adapt to a new environment or make an adaptation because of something going on. Usually we think of stress as something emotional, right? Like I have a deadline, or maybe there's a divorce or a death, and those are certainly stresses. But there's also stresses that happen within our daily lives that sometimes we're not even thinking about. We just respond to them as best as we can in the moment. And my approach is to actually pay attention to those more minor stresses, because the more that we do pay attention to the minor stresses, it's going to make it so that our bodies are more prepared and able to respond to major stresses that we can't always prevent. So when it comes to something like travel being a stress, certainly it's not that we're going to want to avoid it. We want to choose travel, but we want to do it in a way where we're supporting our bodies as much as possible. So to me, that would mean planning your travel in such a way that you can still get enough sleep at night. Even if you change time zones, you want to plan so that once you get to the new time zone, you help your body get back onto a correct circadian rhythm. That's going to help with your stress response. That might mean, for example, even taking melatonin when you get to your new location so you can help your circadian rhythm reset. It also means bringing snacks with you. So often, I know with travel, it's like you end up feeling like you got to search for food, because you don't have your kitchen or your refrigerator right there. So I definitely recommend having snacks in your bag, in your travel bag. Even, say, bring some protein powder with you so that if you're in a hotel somewhere or even camping, that you would be able to easily mix protein powder in water and have something to fuel your body. When our bodies go without food, even if you skip eating for more than 5 hours, that's a stress. Now your body has to figure out, how am I going to get glucose? And the place your body goes for glucose when you have not eaten is it goes to the muscle tissue. So your body ends up burning muscle when you haven't eaten, and so it'd be much better to save your muscle and feed your body. So you want to have foods with you when you're traveling.
Somehow I feel like I have plenty of extra healthy fat to burn through. Are you saying that it doesn't go to that first, it goes straight to the muscle?
I know. I always wish we could flip a switch and tell our bodies, please, would you burn the fat tissue today because I have a little extra? But that's not the way our bodies are built. The way our bodies are built is they save the fat tissue and they go to the muscle tissue. It's only if you were, say, exercising, then your body would burn fat tissue. But if you're just going through daily activities and you haven't eaten, your body's going to go to muscle tissue. So, yeah, the best way to actually burn, it seems contradictory, really, but the best way to get rid of fat is to feed yourself small amounts every few hours throughout the day, because then your body becomes reliant on that next meal, and it starts to learn that it doesn't have to save fat. It can burn the fat and know that you're going to be feeding your body again in a few hours. You see, fat comes when we eat more than our bodies can actually use at that period of time. So that's where the small amounts every few hours comes in. If you have, and this is another thing, I wish our bodies would give us some sort of read to say, this is exactly how much food I need right now, and if you eat any more than that, it's going into fat storage. I mean, it would be so nice if we had that, but we don't. So you just have to kind of get to know your own body. And if you have, let's say, a total of a cup full of food, it can probably use that within the next few hours without storing it. But if you ate 2 cups, equivalent to 2 cups of food, then probably some of that is going to end up in fat storage. And then the only way to get rid of it is going to be mainly through exercise.
That is good to know. So then I just have to exercise in the morning, and then not if I end up jumping from one thing to the next, then I hopefully will choose the muscle or rather fat to burn through rather than the muscle.
Yeah, and it's best if you're going to exercise is have a protein shake beforehand, like before you run out the door to the gym or wherever you're going to do for exercise. Have a little bit of something. I say protein shake because that's what I do, and it's usually easier. Like if you wake up and you're not that hungry, you don't want to fill your stomach, you just want a little something, then you can, say get a rice or pea or hemp protein shake and stir it in water, drink it, head out to the gym, and then when you get back from your workout, figure you're going to need to eat again within an hour and hydrate. Then you fed yourself, you went and worked out, and now you came back and you're feeding yourself again. Your body's gonna you're not gonna actually gain weight. You're gonna just help your body get in a correct metabolism.
Okay, well, thank you. And I know that you were mentioning circadian rhythm a lot, and I know that sleep is obviously a very important part of wellness, but sometimes very hard to accommodate. What are your thoughts on how much sleep one should get and actually catching those Z's?
Research suggests that we should get 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep each night. That's based on an hour-and-a-half sleep cycle. And, so if what you might do is experiment a little bit. There's even apps you can get on the phone and, to track your sleep and see how many hours you're getting and how deeply you're sleeping. I think those are kind of fun for building awareness about your sleep. And one of the other tricky things is that sometimes, if you go to bed too late and you have to get up early, there's not enough time to get in those hours. So one trick is to even set an alarm for when you need to go to sleep so that you're sure you're going to have enough opportunity to get in the 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep. And then if you find that you're either waking up in the middle or not making it all the way to 7.5 hours, then I would say definitely consult with a practitioner, someone like me, who can help you to assess your body. Is this a cortisol issue where, say, your cortisol's too high at night and that's keeping you up? Or is it a blood sugar issue where your blood sugar's fluctuating and waking you in the middle of the night? Or is it a neurotransmitter, say glutamate? Glutamate is a very stimulating neurotransmitter, and if it's too elevated at night, you'll wake up with your mind figuring everything out for the next day, and you'll just be like, oh my gosh, my nervous system is just not turning off. We can do tests to determine those levels, and then we can use nutrients and herbs to address them. So it's not something where you're going to have to be, to me, my solution is not having to use a medication. My solution is let's understand what's happening for your body, and then let's give it what it needs so that you can get back to a good sleep cycle, because it is so important. It's while we sleep that our bodies do restoring, repair, the immune system comes back to balance. There's certain hormones that increase while you're sleeping, and they're only going to increase when you're sleeping. So if you are up all night, you're missing out on those healthy hormone levels.
That's a very good point. What about melatonin? So say if in between times, we get out to see nutritionists and you're traveling all summer and you're busy, would melatonin be a great, placeholder for the time being until you can address it? Or do you have any other herbs or what have you that are natural that you can recommend that we could pick up over the counter?
Melatonin is one that, a lot of people have heard of, and I mentioned it regarding, say jet lag when you're trying to correct for changing time zones, and that definitely has been shown to be helpful. Melatonin levels usually increase about 10 p.m., so, you can imagine if you miss that 10 p.m. wherever you are, then you've missed that melatonin rise. But I suggest, if you're wondering if you need melatonin, I would suggest getting a salivary test to measure your melatonin levels, because this way we can know for sure, is your melatonin low? In which case, yes, it makes sense to take melatonin, or is your melatonin already high? In which case, we need to figure out the real reason why you're not sleeping. So that's an option, and there certainly are a lot of herbs you can even find from health food stores that can help with sleep. Things like valerian root and skullcap, which is calming to the nervous system. and California poppies, which can help with relaxing the body and to get to sleep. So you can certainly try any of those sleep herbal remedies, whether a tincture or a capsule form. And those, I would say, are going to be gently calming, and for a lot of people, that's enough. Sometimes, too, a great way to calm your body is, say, with magnesium, and sometimes we'll use even 5-HTP, which is the precursor nutrient to serotonin. So when you look at these sleep formulas, those are often what you'll find in there, and they're okay to use. They're all going to be relatively low doses, and you can see if it helps. But sometimes it feels like it's not specific enough or it's not beneficial enough. Then this is when working with a naturopathic doctor can help, because they can figure out exactly, instead of using a general formula, they can make it much more individualized for you and find out exactly what is your cortisol, do we need to address it, why is it that your sleep is disrupted, and then we can get more specific with the approach. It's so important. I mean, to me, when I see a patient, if sleep is disrupted, that becomes a priority for us, because when sleep is disrupted, it has such a negative influence on your health that we got to fix that first.
Right, and it just kind of flows into the rest of your day and week. And
Exactly, right? We all can relate. If you got a bad night's sleep, you end up feeling tired and groggy and irritable, and you just feel, we probably, skipping sleep affects us faster than many other things. And sometimes for parents, that's a common thing, I find, where parents are often woken by young ones. And so just helping a person get through time periods in their life when sleep might be disrupted is another important step, so that, we can get as much sleep as possible and then support your body through the rest of the day.
For sure. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I tend to pick up poor habits when I haven't gotten enough sleep, like, overeating or eating, poor choice options.
Exactly. It becomes a vicious cycle, right? Then you're more likely to head to Starbucks and choose something sugary, and we're right back where we started.
Exactly. So, according to a Forbes article I read recently, it turns out I actually live in one of the top most stressful cities in America, of which include Los Angeles, California, New York, Chicago, Illinois, and Washington, D.C., and they're seeing into all sorts of things like traffic, unemployment rates, high housing costs, high population density, high cost of living, and et cetera, et cetera. So in more information age, with like constant emails, texts, and tight schedules, how do you suggest we avoid or at least reduce overstimulation?
Oh, it's such a good point, right? I mean, It's one of those things, I think, that again gets ahead of us before we realize it. We've been exposed to all kinds of messages through the computer and the phone and otherwise, and sometimes the best remedy is just taking a break. Actually, I think that we're coming up on a holiday weekend here, and it's a great opportunity to take a break from technology, because a lot of people are away from technology and doing other things, so that you can enjoy nature, for example. So any day, really, if you plan for yourself time to just go for a walk outside or spend time doing whatever you enjoy outside, outdoors, and the summer lends us to that, then you're going to be automatically away from all that stimulation. And instead, you're giving your body stimulation from nature. And research shows that being in nature definitely helps our cortisol levels decrease and our bodies to come back to a natural, healthy state. Even, a 10-minute walk can do wonders. So I would say, whether you choose a whole weekend away from technology or even on a daily basis, choosing 5 to 10 minutes away from technology, it allows your body a chance to just recenter and refocus.
Yes, I think that's a great point. And you're right. When I go outside and I just take in the fresh air, it definitely helps a lot. It's just a matter of time away from the computer screen to do that.
Yeah, and of course we can't live without it. I mean, you might go outside and take a picture of nature and then want to come back in and post it. which is fine, because then you're more in a mutually and non-stressful experience with technology. It's when it gets out of balance that it becomes a stress.
True. Very, very true. So, are there any other great points that you'd like to suggest to us that you can think of that we haven't previously mentioned? Because I know you have a lot in your head in your book, The Stress Remedy, and
thank
maybe
you
haven't touched on it yet.
One thing I was thinking of is, which has to do with medication use. Sometimes we don't realize that medications can be a stress. So this would be something like, say, antibiotics or anti-inflammatory medications or even antacid medications. So in the summer, a lot of times we think, okay, this at least is not the flu season, so maybe you're a little less likely to have to need antibiotics. But sometimes it still comes along in the summer, either a cold or a sinus infection, or even, say a Lyme, infection, with the ticks being so much more common in the summer. So what I suggest is just trying to be as preventive as possible. The more you can do these other things we're talking about, like getting enough sleep and avoiding sugar, now your body's going to be way more able to fight off an infection, no matter what infection comes along, so that hopefully you're going to be less in need of antibiotics. And if you do get an infection and need to take antibiotics, then you want to just make sure and take probiotics, which are the healthy bacteria, and you can often find those at a health food store. You want to try to get a refrigerated version so it's as active as possible. So you're putting in the good bacteria, even if you had to be on antibiotics, which will kill not only the bad bacteria but the good bacteria too. And then if it comes to, say you have some reason to need to take antacids or anti-inflammatories, whether that's a pain or acid reflux, I'm thinking as a naturopathic doctor about this from a preventive perspective. So if it's acid reflux, for example, let's think through, why is there acid reflux? How can we prevent this so that hopefully you won't need to take the medications? The problem is that long-term use of antacids and other acid-inhibiting medications is they also inhibit digestion. And whenever we have food coming through our digestive tract undigested, then it can lead to some of these food reactions we're talking about, like a gluten reaction and something called leaky gut, which is when the intestinal lining is allowing food to trigger the immune system. So being able to avoid these medications is going to really benefit your health and decrease your stress as well. Some of my favorite tricks for reflux is to make sure you have even a bite or two of protein every time you eat. That could be a couple almonds or a spoonful of almond butter, for example. It could be a couple bites of chicken or turkey. But what happens is the protein tells the sphincter to close, and so then the acid is not refluxing. If you're eating something that's mostly carbohydrate, then the sphincter doesn't get that message, and you're more likely to have reflux. So there's little simple things you can do that can help prevent that issue. And then if we can help heal the inflammation in the digestive tract, we can resolve the whole issue to begin with, and then hopefully not need these medications.
Well, you've definitely had a lot of fascinating tips. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be trying many of them out. And if there's anybody that would like to get in touch with you, what do you suggest is the best way? Your website, your email, phone?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my website is just Dr.Doni.com. You can get there easiest as Dr. and then DONI.com. I do have an online stress quiz, actually, Jessica. If someone's wondering how much is stress affecting their health, they can get to the stress quiz at EmpoweringWellnessNaturally.com. EmpoweringWellnessNaturally.com. And then the book that you mentioned, my book is called The Stress Remedy, and that's at thestressremedy.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate you having been on the show for us today.
Thank you. It was lots of fun. I appreciate you having me.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.